Netflix's live-action Avatar series. It's out now, and I've seen the first episode, and oh boy, am I gonna talk about it. Let's start with the good. Some of it is very nice to look at. The CGI in some areas is pretty good. They really only have problems when they try to do CGI of full people. Then it kind of looks really bad. Also, I like some of the actors. I like Iroh's actor. He seems very... he embodies the character very well, I should say. He just kind of has like that air about him. Zuko's actor I like a lot. I don't think it's for a good reason. A lot of scenes, he just kind of looks like a dumb baby. And it could be just because of the way he's dressed. Zuko in the first couple seasons looks very dumb, but there's just a couple of like scenes where like he's just looking and he just looks dumbfounded, but I don't think that was like the intention. And also he's just like way over the top, which I think, that's kind of how Zuko is in the show too. He's very over the top, but it just looks really dumb in live action. Frankly, when I made the other video, I was hoping to be proven wrong that this show, despite everything, would be good. But honestly, after the first episode, I have no confidence in it. Let's start at the beginning. The beginning, because they are really doing things out of order now. They start the series immediately with just some random earthbender guy. What's his name? Doesn't matter. He dies in the next scene, and they're giving plans and like, oh, the Fire Nation's gonna attack. He has a cool battle. The battle they have is nice. I think they were just trying to like drive people in by being like, look at the effects. Look at this guy throwing rocks and bending earth and whatnot, and then the firebenders, look at us throwing fire at them. It looks pretty cool, but then he gets captured, and I noticed something very odd with the way the bending mechanics work in the live action. It doesn't work the same as the series at all. Firebenders really, from what I've noticed, don't have to do anything to shoot fire. Like in the series, in the original series, the firebending's based on technique. You have to actually like throw a punch. You can firebend if you throw a regular punch, but it's not going to be as strong as if you throw like if you put your whole Fiosi, your whole I can't say that word, whole Fiosi behind it. Whereas in this show, they just like pretty much just stand there and just shoot fire out of their hands, like just with no effort whatsoever. And at one point, Fire Lord Sozin, to that earthbender guy from the first scene, just puts his hand on him and he just melts him. Like firebenders could not just melt people by touching them in the original series. To my knowledge, at least, I've never seen anything like that. And also, they aren't fireproof. Something I noticed very early on, and again, I've only seen the first episode so far. This is based off solely what I've seen in the first episode. I've seen there's multiple scenes where firebenders are just fully engulfed in flame, like literally like just on fire, and then they are fine, which they are not impervious to fire. If they were, Zuko wouldn't have a scar in the first place because he would have just not gotten one. I guess he's impervious. Fire Lord Sozin like melts this guy, and he's still holding on to him when he's like, that guy's on fire. So by all metrics, his hand should also be burned. Like, I don't get it. But then they cut to Aang at the air temple, Monk Gyatso, and they're just like having a good time for the next 2 minutes. They're like, oh, you're Aang, you're the Avatar. And Aang's like, what? Also, Aang can just fly now. That's a new thing. Aang can just fly. There's multiple scenes. The introduction scene of Aang is him just flying around with no glider, just floating, which was said to be like an extraordinary, rare, and like forgotten technique that's only used in The Legend of Korra. To see just Aang flying, it's kind of just like a little like, what, why is he, how is he doing that? So that was like, okay, sure. And also not being able to see the air, like I understand air is invisible, but in the show, when I appreciated, yeah, again, it was a cartoon, I appreciated that they would show the air moving. In the live action, it kind of feels weird, especially when he's just floating around. He's just literally flying around the air temple. They talk for like 2 seconds about like, hey, you're the Avatar. And he goes, oh man. And then he just is like, I need to go for a midnight cruise. He's not leaving. In the original series, he runs away from his destiny. And that's when he gets frozen. No, he literally just gets on Appa and is like, let's go up in the sky and like clear our head and have like a good time. Then we'll come back. And Appa just gets lost. And then they get frozen. Also, the same day that Aang leaves is the day that the comet is, which the comet's in this, by the way. They mentioned, it was mentioned early on that the comet might not even be mentioned in this series, and they might just wait and see how it does to mention the comet next season. No, they mentioned the comet about 40 times in the first episode. It was like insane. They just kept mentioning it over and over and over again. It's like, oh, okay, all right. I guess you got the feedback from the fans when they were like, what do you mean there's no comet? So now every other sentence has to be about how every 100 years there's a comet. So you see the attack on the air temple, and it's pretty cool looking. It was a bunch of old guys getting killed, just like I said it would be in the last video. But then I see Monkey Atso's fighting a guy, and it turns out to be the Fire Lord Sozin. And Fire Lord Sozin at one point is just fully on fire. Like, he's literally a CGI fireman. Like, he just is fully on fire. And then he just walks out of it like there's nothing. It's like, firebenders are just regular guys. They aren't immune to fire. They could just shoot fire out of their hands. So I don't understand, like, how Zuko has a scar and just in general has a scar. They're supposed to be impervious. It kind of makes Zuko look even more like a shit firebender early on. Cut to Sokka and Katara in their village. Katara can't even like do any water bending whatsoever. She like is just basically moving the water slightly and the like barely lifting it up. They go and look for fish and they stumble upon Aang. They don't find Appa. Like, they find Aang. He comes out of the thing and he's just there. He's still unconscious. He doesn't wake up. Sokka literally is just like, oh, we found a child out in the like in the middle of the water that was frozen. We should just leave him. He literally says we shouldn't take him back because he's a weird bald guy, even though he's clearly a child. There's a lot of like explaining and not show, a lot of talking and not a lot of showing. Like, Aang literally at one point talks out loud to Appa about how he's a kid and he's carefree, and then he does not show that characteristic whatsoever the rest of the episode. Like, everyone's so solemn and glum. Sokka makes like one joke right as he's introduced, and then he doesn't really make any other jokes as far as I can see. There's really no jokes at all, which, all right, fine, you're going for a darker theme, but it's like, there's no life. It's just so boring to watch. Exposition, and then it cuts to a scene and there's no build up, there's nothing. It's just, okay, this scene's over, we gotta go to the next scene. Oh, we're done here, we have to go to this next set piece. And also when Aang wakes up, it cuts to Zuko like in the original, and Zuko just has like a bunch of glowy avatar statues to show him that the avatar is nearby. If that like exists, like, I know Aang's been frozen for 100 years, but it's like, that is like ultra convenient to have a statue. Not one, like, he has like a whole shelf of them that glow when the avatar is around, or when the avatar does a magic thing. But then he sees those glowing and runs outside and sees a giant pillar of light. It's like, hey guys, why couldn't you just make it so that he was just on the deck of his boat anyway, like in the original series where he sees a big thing of light. That's a nitpick. That's whatever. Also, when they find Aang, he has his shirt on, and they take him back to the village, and they put him under like blankets to warm him up. And then when he wakes up, he doesn't have his shirt on. So who took Aang's shirt off? That's very weird, because they didn't like take it off and put it somewhere else. They just took it off, and then he was laying on top of it. They basically just unbuttoned his shirt. Very suspicious. Also, Aang just, once he wakes up, he keeps flying, flies some more. He notices Appa isn't there, because why would we care about Appa? He's just like one of the biggest like recognizable symbols or recognizable things from Avatar. Like if you saw Appa, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's from Avatar. And he has an air bison whistle. Doesn't explain what it is. He just basically starts screaming for Appa, flying around through the air. Then he blows this whistle, which if you've never seen the original series, you don't know what that whistle is. It's just kind of random as hell, and they don't mention it, at least in the first episode. Maybe they'll mention it later on. But he blows the whistle, Appa comes, he's like, whoa, the flying bison, no build up there. The villagers like gather around to like see Aang, and Gran just like has an acid flashback in the middle of it and starts reciting the opening of the original series while just staring at like a wall. Like just starts staring off in the distance and goes, 100 years ago the four nations lived together in harmony and everything changed when the Fire Nations, like she just starts spouting off the intro. It's like, Gran, bro, why are you doing that? Chill the fuck out. Also, she's just like kind of rude to Aang for no reason. Like she walks up to him and is like, you're the Avatar, where have you been? Like just like whoa lady, come on, chill. I know he's been missing for a while, but it's like, this is clearly a child. You don't have to go up to him and be like, you the Fire Nation, she literally is like, airbenders are extinct. She also, oh my god, I wish so much that sunglasses just descended from the ceiling and went onto her face when she said, he's the last Avatar, or the last Avatar, he's the last airbender. It's like, all right. Also, just a minor thing that kind of takes away from Sokka's character. I mentioned this in the last video I made before the live action came out. Sokka was like the only boy, or the oldest boy in his village, and all the other boys in his village were like little kids. In this series, there's just a guy that's also Sokka's age, like, or around at least Sokka's age, and he's just like a background character that has like a couple speaking lines. I don't know why they added him, but sure, okay. Kind of takes a little bit of the responsibility of tribe leader off of Sokka's back. And Sokka and Zuko have a fight. I mean, they technically have a fight in the OG series too, if you could call it that. But they have like a real fight in this series where Zuko should have killed Sokka. Like, there's no way, like no goddamn way. He just had plot armor. That's the only reason he survived, because he starts just throwing fireballs at him. And Sokka's just like flopping around like, oh god. Whereas in the original series, Zuko didn't even perceive Sokka as a threat because he wasn't, and it hits him with like a two-piece, just flips him over. But then Sokka turns it around and hits him with his trusty boomerang, which I don't even think Sokka has a boomerang in this live action. I don't remember seeing it. They'll probably bring it up later, but yeah, there was no boomerang from what I saw. 0 out of 10. Also, before the Zuko rolls up, they see that the Fire Nation's coming, and Sokka's like, we have to give him up to the Fire Nation, like he's endangering us. And Katara's like, our mom said we have to protect those who can't protect themselves, which, good sentiment, except you're referring to somebody who is a master airbender, somebody who is literally the master of one of the 4 elements. Like, I don't even think at this point Zuko could be considered a master firebender. So Aang versus Zuko, Aang wins every time at the beginning of the series, especially. So they're just like, we have to protect this kid who is clearly like really good at combat and has been trained in combat his entire upbringing. Or I guess he was trained defensively in his defense. Also, Aang teaches Katara how to waterbend, which she barely could move the water before, and then Aang's like, you gotta feel, you gotta believe, basically. It's like pretty much what he says. The elements are all around you, you gotta feel them. And then she just like has a ball and can move this like little ball of water at that point, which, all right, whatever. Like basically she couldn't do it, and then Aang was like, well, you have to just like feel it. And she was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And she was able to do it. So Aang gets captured this happens in the original. He talks to Iroh, though, which I found very interesting, because in the first episode of the original series, Iroh is like asleep during the entire time the Avatar is on the ship, captured. So Iroh and him have like a nice like talk. It's very cool, but I don't know. I think it's because Iroh becomes such an incredible character later on in the series. I mean, he was great from the beginning, but they're trying to shoehorn him in more because they're like, well, this is Iroh. We have to have him in the forefront way more. Which, you know, I liked his actor, so yeah, all right, sure, whatever. Aang escapes. He finds a glider. He didn't have a glider to begin with. He finds one. And he just starts flying away on the glider. And Zuko just shoots fireballs at him. The glider's made of paper. The fireballs were so close, it should have caught fire. I know it was for like a cool effect, but it's like, ooh, it's just, that's paper, man. That should have been on fire. And then they pick him up on Appa. They don't say yip yip for Appa to fly. Kind of weird. Just add that. That's like fan service, and it's such a little thing. While they're flying away, Zuko shoots a giant fireball at Appa, and then Katara, the person who could barely move any water at all, like literally a minute ago, summons a bunch of water 100 feet into the air to stop this fireball. Like, what? I don't even think Katara at the end of the series, I think Katara at the end of the original series would still have trouble doing that. How does she do that here? They keep cutting. They cut out a lot of dialogue, scenes, important stuff. They cut out like everything in this. Like Katara will go from, I can't even move a single ounce of water, to here's a pillar of water 100 feet in the air. Literally minutes apart from each other. And then after that, they just cut to them being at the Northern Air Temple, or Southern Air Temple. No scene of them leaving their village. From what we've seen, like Sokka and Katara have no reason to leave their village at all. They didn't say bye to anybody. They just basically picked up Aang and went, yeah, you know, the village I spent my whole life in. Yeah, I don't even remember it. And then they just cut to them being at the Southern Air Temple. Aang sees his friends dead, his monk friends dead, goes into the Avatar state. And then Katara doesn't even really take him out of it like in the original. He just like, Aang just is like, bro, I gotta chill. And then he just chills himself down. And then Katara like gives him a hug and was like, oh, we got you. And it's like, you guys like have spent like maybe 3 minutes together on screen, and now you're acting like you're a whole family. Like in the original series, they had episodes to like build up to this, and like, oh yeah, like they are a family because they've spent so much time together. But in this, it's like, it feels like they met 5 minutes ago, and she's like, we trauma dumped about how my mom died and your friends are dead, so we're besties, we're family for life now. It's like, okay. Like, it just feels so rushed for seemingly no reason. Like, I don't know why. And they're shoehorning a bunch of stuff from later on. Like, you don't even know, like, Sozin's comet exists till the middle of the season. You don't even know who Sozin is, really, or see him on screen until, like, season 3, I believe. I think it's season 3. And then, like, in the live action series, they're like, oh no, he's in, like, the first scene. Just Sozin's comet, here's a comet coming. Every 100 years there's a comet. They kill guys, and fire people are immune to fire. Also, when Katara is like comforting Aang, she literally goes like, all your friends are dead, but you're strong because of it. Which is the equivalent of just saying like, oh yeah, all your friends died, but you're a brave boy, so it's okay. It's like, oh, it was like the worst consoling I've ever seen in my life. It's like, oh, okay. Like, oh, your friends died? Yeah, but you're like getting over it. And then we have also, that's like the end of the episode. Episode 1 done. However, we have one scene left, and it is my favorite scene in the entire episode. There is a scene at the end of the episode where Zuko is just intensely drawing, like insane levels of drawing, like overacting like crazy, just like going like with a thing, like I think with charcoal or whatever he's using to draw. And then he takes the picture and he puts it up on the wall of just his own cabin, by the way. He's not like showing anybody, he's just putting it up on his wall. And it is like a third grader's drawing of Aang. Like, it's the worst drawing I've ever seen. Like, why did he put so much effort into it? And then Zuko bursts into flames again. Apparently immune to fire. He bursts into flames. You would think a man who has half of his face scarred from burns would be a little more careful about just bursting into flames in the middle of his room. He's also like 2 feet away from a wall of papers. So he's bursting into flames next to a wall of papers, one of which is a drawing, beautiful drawing he just made. I am honestly curious to see how bad this gets. I am going to watch the rest of the series. And if I feel compelled to make another video about it, I will, but like, I don't know. I don't know how it could get worse. I don't think it could get worse. I think it would just stay the same, which is still just bad in its own way. It's just very stagnant. My final verdict of this is very boring. Didn't like it. The pacing was awful, like unbelievably awful, even from just like a show perspective. Like, if this wasn't an adaptation of something, the pacing would just still be awful. I couldn't imagine somebody who isn't a fan of Avatar watching this and understanding what is actually happening. Let's remove all the dialogue except the dialogue that's explaining the backstory of the world, and then we'll cut like between scenes. Like, them getting to the Southern Air Temple literally happens between one, like the scene where they just escaped Zuko, and then it just cuts to that. In the show, that's like weeks later. So they just cut to weeks later. No, doesn't say like a week later, it doesn't say nothing. I don't even think it said like Southern Air Temple. It's just, they just cut to a scene and he's just walking to the Southern Air Temple. I mean, they did show it in the beginning, but it looks a lot worse now. It's all destroyed. But yeah, they're just like, yep, oh yeah, next scene, sorry, oh, we gotta keep going, oh, the plot has to keep going forward, sorry, we can't talk about what happened, we can't develop any characters, we just have to get to the final place, which I don't even know where there's no like reason for them to do this. Like, Aang has a reason to go to the Southern Air Temple, but Katara and Sokka have no reason whatsoever to join him. Zuko's only after Aang. Zuko and Katara, in the live action series at least, could have just went back to their village. In the original series, the whole precedent of it is, oh, we're going to the Southern Air Temple, and then I'll bring you to the Northern Water Tribe so you can learn waterbending. That was not discussed at all in this series, so Sokka and Katara just abandoned their village for seemingly no reason for a person they just met 2 minutes ago. It's just absurd. It just has no like heart to it. And the biggest kicker is they use the original end theme music for the end theme music of this, which threw me off so hard when I was just like, oh, I think I audibly groaned when I started hearing it, because I was like, oh, because that's a banger track. So for them to use it for this, it's like, but yeah, I don't know. It's just not good. That's really it. I'll give it a light 6. That's generous. Yeah, a light 6. Yeah, I'll stick to that, because like the visuals and some of the scenes are pretty cool. The costume design is pretty great. I like Aang's costume. It looks very cool. I mean, it looks kind of goofy, but I like that. Something has to be goofy about him. They took away all of his whimsy and all of his fun. So yeah, I'm gonna watch the rest of it just because I hate myself. And you know, I don't know, I just want to see how they do it. Like, what do they, is there any like redeeming that they do later on? I don't know. No, as of right now, I have no hope, zero hope. Did you enjoy the show? Let me know in the comments below. Did you hate the show? Also, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to. I don't know. And until next time, peace out.